Hi guys. Last few months I've been working on a few projects around our home. We took a landing area that had a wall of cabinets and we took that wall down and turned it into a mudroom. This project involved soundproofing insulation in the walls and then shiplap over the top of it, painted tongue and groove type pine ceiling as well too. There's a medallion on each of the light fixtures as well too. And so that's been quite a project. It's got me busy the last few months, getting a lot of advice from some of my good buddies as well too. Doug, John, and a lot of help from Ivan as well. So there's flooring on there as well too. So that helps us to have an entrance area for people to put their shoes and coats and things like that for the fall, for the winter, for the summer. And the latest project I'm working on is crown molding for our bedroom. So these are some of the pieces that are ready to go and install. They've been primed with primer and then a couple coats of paint, gloss paint. And what I did carefully, I also wrote on the ends of each of these pieces as to what wall they go to, whether it's the left side of the wall or the right side. And I think that helps me a lot to be able to remember when I go to put them in just exactly where they're supposed to go to minimize some of the mistakes. So whether you're ever going to attempt crown molding or know of somebody that will, maybe there's a heads up of what they can look to do. On the outside, I'm going to show you something with the saw. It's not real complex to do crown molding, but at the same time, it is a bit of an art. And with that, I bought my pieces that were 12 foot long, and I also needed two walls that were longer than that, so I had to buy extra in order to span that gap. Okay, so when you take crown molding, it'll have a flat edge on the end. What they recommend in some videos on YouTube is to just do a butt joint or a butt cut, as they say. Just square it off, cut it straight at the saw, and then get whatever length you need. Say if your wall is 10 feet long, cut it to 10 feet long and put it up against the wall and the ceiling, and it should go right in there. It'll sit like that up at the wall. So that butt cut is the first one that they recommend to do. What I wanted to do is get away from that and find an angle that would work for me. So what I ended up doing is, like, I have a compound miter saw. It not only moves in and out, but it also moves sideways. It rotates, sideways as well too. So here we go. What they want you to do is your crown molding will sit on the ceiling like that with this little piece here towards the bottom. They recommend taking and flipping this upside down, put it up against the wall of your table saw, and then make the cut to whatever angles you need. And that's just a little bit complicated. Here's what I ended up doing to avoid having to do all that, because once you make your cut on some of the parts, you don't want that little extra brown piece on there. You have to cut that out and follow this line as well too. There's something called a coping saw, which looks like this, and you take and you cut along that line very carefully. Follow that pattern to get rid of that so that your parts can overlap. Okay, so what I ended up doing is messing with the table saw, and this is what I came up with. 32 on the angle right here. So you see how this is on this bit of an angle. It should a lot of times be squared straight up. Okay, so it's on 32, and then this part, which if you look at the saw, it rotates it this way. That's set at 31.5. Once I came up with that and used a few scrap pieces to get the cuts and angles that I wanted, I came up with pieces that look like this. only imagine this to be maybe 10.5 feet long with one cut like this on one end and then the other on the other end. How do I get those? Well, instead of going upside down and on an angle like this here, I ended up laying this molding down, and that's what I was looking for. Is if I lay this piece for my left side, if I'm going to start on the right side of the room, if I'm going to start in the corner, I'm going to lay this onto here. The saw is going to follow that angle, and it's going to make that cut. Okay. For the other end, which say if your room is 9 foot wide or 10 foot wide, imagine this piece being 9 feet wide, and at the other end it has the same type cut, but what I end up doing is, let me see if I can get this right down here. It's coming. Okay, just lay it upside down. That's all it is, this way here. So the first cut is right here, this way. Just flip it over and put it this way, so the saw will follow that cut now. All I do is lay my piece flat on there, measure it to length. And when I'm measuring for length, I'm the length of the room, however wide it is. Say if your room is 8.5 feet wide, you want to measure from there to there. Let's say that's 8 feet wide is where I want, so I'll, on my straight piece like this, I'll measure, that's my 8 foot right there. I want it, so I put a mark on there with a pencil, and I lay it down here, and I make that cut. The blade will come through there, and it'll make that cut across there. Okay, so this is what I'm going to end up with right here. Right, I never have to change for this whole project. I never have to change the angles or do anything different. Just cut this piece here. When I get a piece for the next wall, which is like this, they're gonna look like this. They'll come together. Give me a second to set this up for you here. I put these two pieces together and they come together real nice like that, okay? Once that happens, one way to test it, I took a little box that has square edges, and I took and used it as a reference point. I put that right up against there, and it comes together really nice. Okay, so I knew I was onto something there. From there, what I'll do is put some caulk, take some white caulk, and put all in that seam. When I get ready to nail this thing up to the wall, all my pieces, I'll put that together, and the excess will just squeeze right out once I nail everything in, and then clean it up with a little rag, a damp rag. That's what gives me all the cuts that I need. And even when I have to overlap pieces, when a piece is like my crown molding is if it's too short and doesn't reach the entire length, okay, I bought 12-foot pieces, but my room is like, say, 14 or 15 feet long. I have to be able to cut a couple pieces to overlap. If I have this here, then I can take and cut the angle to make it right. This is the one going into my corner, and these two come together like this here. This is an overlap. This makes two pieces longer than what I'm able to do with my material. How do I get that? And that is the same thing, using the same angle, cutting that one there. This one cuts like this. Okay, they come together. I'm able to tackle that, put that together. Once I put those together with a little bit of caulk in between and push them together tight and nail them, it's ready to go. So I was able to achieve that by setting this at 32 and this at 31.5 on that angle, and just using that same cut. Now it just depends on your material. It's either going to be like this or it's going to be like that. It worked for every piece that I'm working with, and I did some testing with each one of them to make sure that it works. So thought I'd maybe that's a lot of talking, but anyway, I wanted to give as much detail as I could to help you with a project you might be working on, or somebody else you might give some advice to. Have a good day.